Friday, the final day of the week. These are the voyages of the program Unsportsmanlike Conduct. Its ongoing mission to explore strange new movies, to seek out new bits and new edifications, to boldly go where no radio program has gone before. Oh, Elkent's Movie Club. It's Elkent's Movie Club. Elkent's Movie Club. It's Elkent's Movie Club.
We welcome him in right now. It is our friend Kent Wolgamott from the Lincoln Journal-Star. The movie club continues. Today we are talking about Being John Malkovich. Kent, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We are doing very, very well. I'm looking forward to this discussion. Stibbs and I, big fans of the movie. It was first time for you, right, Stibbs?
Correct. Yeah.
First time for him. First time for all of us in this room. Robbie,
Correct.
though, hated it.
Not a fan.
And so I think that this will be a pretty fun discussion. Ken, I want to begin by asking you this. What do you remember about, like, your expectations for this movie the first time you saw it? And, like, I guess what you expected, because we were just kind of discussing it a little bit for the last couple of minutes. This was not the movie that I was expecting. For some reason, I thought it was going to be, like, more of a science experiment type thing where they needed to use John Malkovich's brain rather than discovering it in the 7.5 floor in an office building, randomly falling into it. What did you expect going in?
Okay. Teleport yourself back, whatever it is, 21 years or whatever that was. And at that time, I was going to what are called exhibitor screenings, which generally don't happen much anymore because they keep the movies under such tight control, and then they only show them even to the theater owners like a week or two before they come out. I would see movies like a month before they came out.
Oh, wow.
And it would be me, and the Douglas Theater Company used to be headquartered here in Lincoln. They had theaters in Lincoln and Omaha. And then a couple people that owned smaller theaters. And then there was another theater chain that was out of Lincoln, but most of their theaters were in Iowa. So there'd be 7 people in this little screening room, and we'd watch 2 or 3 movies a day sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because you saw them so early, there was no hype on it, right? I had all I knew is that it was called Being John Malkovich, and I probably knew that John Cusack and Cameron Diaz were in it.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, this was the first movie from Spike Jonze as a director, and a first movie that Charlie Kaufman wrote. So those names would have meant virtually nothing to me. So when I remember going in there and just going, and this was my number 1 movie of the year in 1999.
I remember it being talked about.
Beat out American Beauty and Fight Club.
I remember it being talked about a lot, like as a kid, essentially. Like me and Josh were talking about how we remember seeing it in the blockbusters and Hollywood videos of the world, and always being like, I just remember it being a talking point for that year when it came out, that a lot of people were talking about mostly how weird it was, but how interesting it was.
And it, I think the thing that I remember coming out of it, right, was this is kind of like the most innovative and interesting movie that I've seen in a long time. And it was really, really funny. I really thought it was a funny movie. And I also thought that I was trying to find my review, but it's so old it's not online.
Oh,
it's not in our online library, and the Journal-Star is fixing to move maybe someday, but they packed up the library already, so I can't get to the actual physical clip files.
Oh,
so
bummer.
I couldn't find the review, but I remember thinking,
oh no!
He's good. He's good.
Oh, there you are, Kent.
This is the kind of movie that is either going to change everything, right? Or it's going to be kind of an outside oddball forever. And I think it kind of ended up somewhere in the middle of that, honestly, because for a while, Charlie Kaufman movies and these kind of offbeat things, you saw a lot of them. I can't imagine one of them being made now.
So, Robbie, what did you? Because you didn't like it, obviously, as we've kind of joked around today.
I did not enjoy it.
Yeah.
What? So I guess part of and Ken, I'll kind of ask you this as a question. I guess part of the reasons I didn't enjoy it, I thought there were some really troubling things in terms of like sexual consent. I thought there was the domestic abuse stuff between John Cusack and Cameron Diaz bothered me a lot. Are there things that, I mean, I know you just said Charlie Kaufman movies maybe don't get made today. Were there things that you saw on rewatch where you're like, man, that doesn't necessarily age the way I remember it?
Well, that was that kind of stuff, but also, some of the, how do you want to say,
language,
the sort of absurdist humor, and the it has its narrative goes in 80 zillion different directions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at movies today, they don't do that. They're pretty much straight line. Since the sort of the dawn of the superhero movie has kind of pushed everything else out of the way, they're these sort of straight line narratives. This thing almost feels like it's two movies that are put into one, right? You've got the love triangle thing, and you got it going through this weird sci-fi thing where you end up inside John Malkovich's head, right? So you've kind of jammed two pictures together.
I mean, almost part of what the whole Lester thing too.
Fun, but it's also, I think, part of it may not have aged well compared to what is here now.
Kent, what do you know, I guess, about Malkovich and in real life, and how much of that character was, of course, playing a caricature of himself versus how much of it was just totally falsified to make him interesting? Because that was definitely one of the things that I was looking forward to seeing, was how he was going to be portrayed in the movie, knowing that he is playing a fictionalized version of himself.
A, it's a fictionalized version of himself. B, I actually talked to him. He was in Lincoln a few times over the years because he had some relatives here.
Yeah.
And so I've talked to Malkovich a few times, and I never asked him about the movie because I figured that's what everybody in the world wants to talk to him about.
Sure.
But there was some of him that was pretty much John Malkovich in the movie, and some of it was exaggerated, and some of it was completely not him. And my understanding is he told Charlie Kaufman, okay, if you're going to use this, use me, take it over the top, right? Don't hold back.
Yeah.
And the quote I read from him, and this is pretty interesting. He said, all right, he said, there were two possible outcomes that would have been horrible. If this thing had been a total bomb, how would you like a movie with your inside John Malkovich? Yeah. 7 people went to see it, right? You don't want that. And if it became the giant box office hit of the year, then you're stuck with that for the rest of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
This thing was a critical hit, moderately done at the box office, and has done very well since then, which is, he said, the perfect outcome for him of it.
I thought Malkovich did really well because not only, I've always heard actors and actresses do not necessarily enjoy trying to act as themselves or playing themselves in things. So not only did he have to do that, even if it was kind of an over-the-top version of himself, he had to decide how over-the-top he wanted to necessarily make it. Plus, then he's also playing Cusack's character and Diaz's character and whoever else goes in there. So him, like all the parts where he would do his like weird spaz out when someone would take him over, essentially, I thought he did. That could be, I mean, it was a little bit kind of corny, but that could get so over the top that I could have checked out immediately. I thought he did a really good job. He made it funny. without being like way over the top stupid at the same time.
I agree. What I still can't figure out is how did they do that scene where he goes inside his own head?
Yeah,
that was my favorite scene.
Like 8,000 of himself.
That was my favorite scene.
That?
Yeah, especially considering it's a movie that came out in 1999.
Yeah.
I kind of rewound it and watched a few parts again because there were a few. You can tell there are obviously there are people in place, like lookalikes in place, and then they'd probably either try to do, like you said, I don't know how they did it, but there are a few times, like as the camera's moving quick when he's trying to like run out of the restaurant, that you'll pass a guy and you can see like someone else's face really fast.
Oh, is that right?
They weren't able to get a face on every single person, or like they tried, but because it doesn't quite look like him as much as the rest of them. It's pretty interesting, but I loved that because the whole time he's crawling down that thing, my brain's just
it's like what's going to happen?
Where is he going to?
And then what happens with the people who are already down there inside of his own brain? Ken, did you? I realized this late in the movie. Obviously Catherine Keener is in it, and this is, I think, probably, I'm looking at her IMDb. This is probably the earliest movie that I can now remember seeing her in. But the thing that I kind of took away was there's a lot of similarities between this and Get Out, which is another movie that she was in. I mean, there was one point in particular where it literally looked like The Sunken Place. I thought
Jordan Peele has said Get Out is kind of a tribute to being John Malkovich.
Well, that makes all the sense in the world then, because there were a lot of similarities, not even just
it
her
was
being in
my
it.
first thought when I saw her in it, because I didn't look at it. I didn't know she. I didn't even know Cameron Diaz was in this.
Yeah.
But when I saw her, I was like, oh no way! You know what? This is a lot like that. That was my first thought.
And he did it and Jordan Peele did it on purpose.
That's awesome.
Ken, one of the things that I noticed that I don't know if you picked up on is that the lead singer of REM, Michael Stipe, is a producer on this movie. Does he do a lot of this stuff, or is this kind of a weird one-off?
Is it just because he looks just like John Malkovich?
No, Stipe has always, he's done a lot of movie production, and I think that's primarily what he's doing right now is working in movies. So I think this was the first one. And what that really means is he got signed on to bring on money, whether it was his money or somebody else's money. He got signed on because this took years to get made. Shocking, huh? It took years for this script to get made. And so by the time it finally got made, I think they had to round up somebody like him that would be able to bring in sort of non-traditional funding for the movie. Paramount Pictures wasn't sitting there thinking, I think I want to put up $15 million to make this.
Sure. It's interesting that you mentioned the other movies in 99 that kind of you thought rivaled it, but you thought were better, like Fight Club and American Beauty. This is a lot like Fight Club in a way where it's a mind-bending kind of,
like an existential.
It goes in a bunch of different directions.
There's two people playing the same person, but you don't know why, and all this stuff.
Spoiler alert.
They're kind of alike in that sense. And even American Beauty, there's not quite that much of it, but there's all sorts of weird flashbacks inside of his head and the things he's dreaming about and seeing.
That's a disturbing little picture nowadays.
Yeah.
So
we're talking about movies that maybe haven't aged very well.
Yeah.
Was this kind of
not to mention it's spacey.
Was this kind of like a part in the movie making business where all of a sudden these types of movies became popular? Like, is this a year that kind of really pushed that forward?
Not to mention The Matrix is this year too.
The Matrix, where it's like reality.
These
were always kind of weird indie, and now they were kind of pushed to like, wow, these are like the best movies made this year.
Well, I think what it really was, I think you're kind of hitting on it there, is these come out of that indie culture that sort of started bubbling up in the late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And this is 10 years in. So they're getting the mainstream distribution and they're the bigger movies and the bigger budgets, but it's still out of that indie principle, which went for a while. And then it's kind of, they're still out there, but they've gone back down into the sort of the indie realm rather than being the major studio picture. Because this was a Universal picture, it's a major studio release.
Yeah.
Couple things that I wanted to mention that I just liked, because like we haven't really mentioned specific things. One of the things that I loved is just we get inside his head and we understand that it is a huge experience for all these characters, but we don't know exactly like what it is about it that they love. And even though they're in there for 15 minutes, it's like life altering, to the nth degree for everybody. Also, the thing that destroyed me was that Cusack's character gets into his brain and then he figures out how to stay there. And he's like, all right, now I'm going to be a puppeteer. Like, I don't know why. That is just so hysterical to me. And then that he becomes like this master puppeteer and everyone's like, oh my gosh, I want to be a puppeteer. The part with Sean Penn towards the end made me laugh so hard, because if that actually happened, Sean Penn would be the guy who would be like, all right, time to become a puppeteer.
Yes. And see, to me, that part of that is a argument about the nature of celebrity, that this same guy couldn't make it as a puppeteer, but you put him in John Malkovich's body and all of a sudden he becomes a superstar.
Yeah.
Right? That the celebrity is almost like self-perpetuating or something, right? And that's one of the things that this movie brings up that I thought made it so interesting back then. It's not just a weird movie. There's all these kind of ideas running through it. And as for what did they get out of going in there, the only time that really comes through is when Cameron Diaz goes in there the first time, and then she comes back and I'm a transsexual.
Yeah. His John Cusack's just utter like disbelief at everything that she said in that scene he played it up very, very well.
I thought the same thing along the lines of how he turned Malkovich into a puppeteer. Essentially, I kind of looked at it almost like you flipped that around. How I thought it was interesting that Cusack's character wanted to be him or somebody else necessarily, really, for so long, and then he had the opportunity to literally be someone else,
and he stills himself.
But he falls back into like he grew his hair out and looked all like horribly stupid. Exactly. He still became a puppeteer. So like, no matter how badly you think you wanted to be someone else, once you got it, you still fell back on all the things that you were doing in the first place.
And his wife still hated him.
Yeah, there was some weird message in there somewhere that I couldn't necessarily put my finger right on, but I could see it happening in front of me.
Well, it's a Charlie Kaufman movie, so there are a lot of things that you go, okay, there's something there, but I can't quite, but I don't know if you've seen any of his other movies. Adaptation,
Eternal
Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Him and his twin brother, who doesn't really exist. They're the Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is.
Yep, I hate that movie.
Yeah, maybe I should.
He wrote the. What was the Chuck Barris? Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, which is about Chuck Barris, the Gong Show and dating game host who claimed he was a CIA agent. And that movie I thought was great. Charlie Kaufman disowned it because the director, when he made changes in the script, asked Chuck Barris what he should be done with the changes rather than Kaufman. But he made all these really out there, crazy, weird movies that I thought were great fun. He directed a movie called Schenectady, New York, that's really good and like was maybe the best movie of the year it came out, and it was a total bomb. And now he can't get another movie made.
He's got another one coming out
on Netflix.
Yeah,
I read the book. The book is weird. Like, so now watching this movie and kind of knowing some of the other stuff that he has done, this book is going to be right up his alley.
The trailer looks wild, and there's some people in it that I love. Jesse Plemons. I'll probably definitely pick it for this movie club. So we're going to want you to watch it, Ken.
And I haven't had the courage to do this yet, largely because I rarely will pay for a hardcover fiction book. Charlie Kaufman has put out a book this year, a novel about a movie being made that he has said the movie in there is so crazy it could never be made as a movie.
Interesting.
All right.
So there you go. Charlie Kaufman land. The other thing that's important to point out, I think, this was John Cusack, one of his peak periods. After this, then he did High Fidelity or whatever that was called.
It was High Fidelity.
Yeah.
About the record.
That was back to back, and then shortly thereafter, he did the Grosse Point Blank, where he's the hitman guy. And he was just great in all of them.
By the way, Steve points out before we get to John's pick for next week, he says Blair Witch Project came out about the same time as well. And yeah, he's right. I just looked it up. That was also 1999.
It's a good year.
Man, what a year for movies. What a year for movies.
Also, I think The Phantom Menace came out that year. So
that did as well. 1999, the best year for movies ever. All right, so that is Being John Malkovich. Once again, we say it like every week. I love doing the movie club. I'm happy that I finally had a chance to watch that one. Next week, it's a movie that I have seen. I think it's a movie that Stibbs has seen as well.
I have.
This is from John, Dallas Buyers Club. It is on Netflix. John has never seen it. I don't know if he knows.
Has he not seen it?
I was going to say, does he know what he just
Yeah, I would assume so because, man, this movie is depressing. I hope he's not wanting to rewatch it. So Dallas Buyers Club is available on Netflix.
Oh.
You might think that it's a sequel to Debbie Does Dallas.
Maybe that's what he thinks.
We shouldn't probably be watching Debbie Does Dallas.
Yeah, we'll save that for if the pandemic is still raging in August of 2021, then we'll start going to some of those movies. Kent Wolgamott of the Lincoln Journal-Star. Kent, fun conversation as always. I hope you have a great weekend. The NBA playoffs start on Monday. It's going to be awesome.
Going to be good.
Yeah.
Finally, they're because these preseason games sort of, so many guys were not playing, and why would you play them, right?
Yeah.
And they kind of and people, the ratings are way down. Well, they're treading water until the ratings will come right back up. Although there are a couple stink balls to start out. Those 1-8 matchups are not good.
Yeah, those will be over relatively quickly for sure. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Dallas Buyers Club, the uplifting film that John shows. It's available on Netflix. We'll do that next week. Kent, have an awesome weekend. We'll talk to you then.
See you then.
All righty. That is Kent Wolgamott of the Lincoln Journal-Star. Man, Robbie, way out on this movie.
Way out. Also,
way out.
The Sixth Sense also came out in '99.
Holy moly!
The Sixth Sense. There was another one. The Hurricane.
That was Denzel. Yeah, I think he might have won the Oscar for that one.
He was definitely nominated for Best Actor.
I
never saw that one.
I never did either. I heard good things.
So here's my issue. If you,
I guess we could have done this with Kent.
Will allow me to. I didn't want to bogart his.
Yeah,
his
we all did love
movie. Except for this guy.
Yeah,
I'll admit, like towards the end where Cusack is taking over John Malkovich's body.
Yeah.
Like the stuff with Sean Penn and the ridiculousness of the puppeteering and stuff.
The huge puppet
was that was all really pretty funny.
Yeah.
I thought I understood the humor there. The stuff that made me just super uncomfortable and I couldn't get over. First of all, the simulated puppet sex in the beginning of the movie
with the little girl watching,
super uncomfortable.
You and I are horrible people.
I know it was bad, but that's what made me laugh.
I was just so uncomfortable. I was like, this is gross.
Yeah.
The whole thing with what's the lady from 40-Year-Old Virgin? What's her name?
Catherine Keener.
Catherine
I don't know what her name is in the movie. I don't remember. But so when Catherine Keener, Maxine is having sex with John Malkovich,
as Cameron Diaz
first as Cameron Diaz, and then as John Cusack.
Yeah,
like that whole thing was just really troubling to me.
It's messed up as hell.
I hope that you're not taking us liking the movie to be like, I am pro that.
It sounds like you're just endorsing this one.
No, you can like the movie while not endorsing the thing.
Putting a 2 thumbs up stamp on the weird sexual consent stuff. No. I couldn't get past that stuff. It was just too uncomfortable for me to enjoy the rest of the movie. I understand that the plot or the premise is really, really interesting.
Premise is awesome.
There are parts towards the end of the movie that I think are pretty funny. I would have watched a movie about what's the deal with these Lester people?
Yeah,
honestly, why are they able to that could have been a whole movie for me.
I'm very intrigued by those people. You don't meet them till the very end, and then you're like, oh, this brings in a whole new
if that was
and then you find out Cusack's been in the little girl since she was born.
Yeah, that would be that could be another movie for me and be super interesting, and I'd be on board for that. There were parts of the movie I thought were super interesting and pretty funny and just really well thought out. But the stuff that was
a tough hang
for me was just too much.
I won't disagree with you because I probably would have been more interested if there was more of that and less of the like weird relationship stuff.
The stuff that I liked, if that was the whole movie, I'm in. Like it's a really interesting premise and just a really unique idea that you don't get a lot of that in movie making, especially now.
Yes.
But there was so much of the other, it felt like weird stuff for the sake of being weird.
See, I never thought that interesting.
And I got no benefit from that.
Yeah.
Like I get some of the showing John Cusack as a weirdo because it lends itself to what happens once he controls Malkovich. But some of the stuff with like his like really bizarre behavior with Cameron Diaz and like locking her in a cage and stuff, like I just was totally out on that stuff.
I disavow locking people in cages.
Not just out in terms of like, I think it's a bad idea to do as a human being.
Yeah.
But out in terms of like, I didn't think that furthered the plot that much for me. I mean, you can show a dysfunctional relationship without literally
putting somebody in a cage.
Like, yeah, putting duct tape over her face and locking her in a cage and attacking her with a gun. Like the domestic violence thing there went a little far for me for what I thought the purpose of the movie was. I thought there was stuff in there that was bizarre for the sake of being bizarre and not for the sake of advancing what otherwise could have been a really interesting plot.
Yeah. All right. So that's being John Malkovich. Fun discussion. Even though I don't know if we've had really any movies that we have all totally agreed on in full lockstep. I guess Airplane may be the closest thing to it.
Yeah.
Walter Adding, who gave us the beer for today, plus 1999 was the last time Nebraska won a conference title.
What do you know?
Maybe the last great year.
The Green Mile also came out in 99.
Oh my gosh.
Do you like The Green Mile?
Never seen it.
Really?
Never seen it.
Right? It's a good movie.
I've just figured you would have seen it. It's like right up your
alley. And I love Stephen King.
Yeah.
And it's on television constantly.
I don't watch movies on TV.
Fair enough.
I don't like the commercials and I don't like them editing out, the weird fetish stuff. I wanted to see the fetish stuff.
Varsity Blues came out in 99.
I hate that movie.
Great.
Out on Varsity Blues.
Great movie here.
Oh.
I'm just kidding.
Okay, good.
I just thought October Sky. That's actually a pretty good movie.
I liked October Sky.
That came out in 99. Yeah. Office Space came out in 99.
Dang.
8mm came out in 99.
I never saw 8mm.
That movie's great.
Man, there's just this Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Some people like that movie a lot.
Some people like that movie.
People
enjoy this film.
Yeah, I like that. All right, we're 15 minutes away from One Beer Friday. We'll see if there's any other good movies that came out in 1999.
I'm just going through.
We're gonna hop off the Vidya stream.
10 Things I Hate About You.
I forgot we were still on it. I hope I didn't do anything embarrassing.
No, I don't think we did, Sibs. I think we're okay.
Man on the Moon. I think that Jim Carrey movie came out.
I never saw that. That's
Andy
about Andy Kaufman. Yeah. Some news coming out about high school football in Lincoln. We can get to and discuss.
Sad sports flash or happy sports flash?
Both. Depends on who you are.
All right.
Will be the reaction to how you feel about it. So we'll have that when we return. It's on Sportsmanlike Conduct 1620 The Zone.